In years past, I might have said something like, if you watch end times movies or post-apocalyptic films, you probably have a heightened sensitivity to secret plots by some kind of cabal. But now, in today's world, I could just say, if you watch the news, you probably have a heightened sensitivity to secret plots by some sort of cabal. If this is your first cabal quest, welcome to the party. A lot of times these things look something like this. Like, we all know that there's some power structure in place, and the way the movies make it seem is that behind the elected structure is there's some secret group that's quietly pulling the strings that the average person doesn't know about. Whoever the main character is in the film, they're sent on a quest to try to uncover that, expose it, and end it before it's all too late. Or it might look something like there's some kind of economic system that's so built into the system that none of us can detect it, and it's just lightly skimming a little bit off of the top of everyone into one person's pockets. It probably doesn't help when in the real world you learn that 90% of mass media is controlled by 5 companies, or that the majority of the average person's online interactions is controlled by a couple of billionaires. Just this past week, Elon Musk became the world's first trillionaire. How are we feeling about that? Anybody excited? Nervous? Regardless of what your system of economics was or what you thought it was last week, probably all of us worry a little bit with one individual having that kind of, the money I don't think is the concern, it's the power, the influence, etc., that $1.2 trillion can grant. Our story today from the text, it's about a very silent international partner. He was the unseen hand behind several local businesses. And there's something Jesus wants us to learn from this story about what this means for the end times. This morning, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 25. This is the final of his sermons in the book of Matthew. So once we finish this chapter, essentially it gets into the Passion section of Matthew, and then his resurrection and his ascension, and that's the end of the book. So we're nearing the end of the book as Jesus nears the end of his life here in Matthew. And so he's been teaching on the end times in chapter 24 and chapter 25, where we're today. He is teaching some stories that illustrate this. So this starts out with a man who's on a journey. In verse 14, he says, "For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them with his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his ability. And then we went away." Here at verse 14, it says, "For it will be." Jesus is telling these stories in pretty rapid succession. It will be. The previous story starts with the kingdom of heaven will be like, and now Jesus just goes, it will be like. These are deeply connected stories, and he's kind of just hitting them one after another. You kind of catch his pace here from that. The kingdom of heaven will be like this. It's a man who leaves on a journey. Now, the whole rest of this story is a bit of a preposterous scenario, right? It's not something that we would think to do. Imagine living in another country. You have a car, maybe you have a house, maybe you have a small business there, you have some assets, you have some money in the bank, and for whatever reason, your visa gets revoked or you have to leave the country. Most of us would think, how do I cash out and take it all with me? Right? We don't want to leave something there because we think, well, what if I can't get back in? What if I can't regain access to what I had? I'm out all of this stuff. And this person has a very different idea. He takes his 3 closest servants. We don't know they're close. He takes his 3 servants and says, here's all of my stuff. And he doles it out to them. And then he leaves. What if he doesn't come back? What if he can't come back? See, it's a little bit of a risky situation. This is some risky business. He might never get back. He might never get his money back. And so he entrusts with them some talents. Talent is not a money measurement, it's a weight measurement. So you could have a talent of gold, or you could have a talent of silver, you could have a talent of dirt. I don't think they measured dirt and talents. But the point is, it's a weight measurement, not a money measurement. And so usually a talent would be paid out in silver or gold, just based on weight and rarity. Probably silver would be the most likely. So instead of getting into what's the cost of silver over time or the inflation of the dollar and all of that kind of stuff. Let's just say this is intended, a talent of silver would have been the equivalent of about 20 years worth of wages. So if we put that in today's median income, 20 years worth of wages, one talent, 20 years of median wages here, it's about $1.2 million. So the servant who had the least was handed $1.2 million, which means servant number 2, who got 2 talents, was handed $2.4 million, and servant number 3, who got 5, was handed about $6 million. The point is not how much is the money exactly, because again, it says he took his stuff and he gave it to them, right? He's cashing out, investing in 3 local guys. He's leaving, and then there's this promise to return. It sounds like he kind of gave them everything that he had. Now, just think about this for a moment. Imagine you have a new business venture, and you're looking for investors. And one day I come to you, and I have $2.5 million that I'm going to invest. What's one of the first questions you're going to ask me? Where'd you get the money? What did you do? Who do you, is the mafia coming behind you, or are you being black? You're going to have all of these questions because you all know I don't have $2.4 million. And so the same thing would be true in this village. This person leaves, and he leaves this massive wealth with 3 guys who were labeled as servants. These likely would have been kind of household servants or managers. He obviously had a lot of means when he was there. And so in Roman culture and Greek culture, they would have hired skilled laborers. They would have hired scribes, people with education. So these weren't dummies. These were probably smart people, but they wouldn't have had this kind of money laying around. And so there's no way that they can go out into the community and do business without people going, hang on, whose money is this really? And why do you want to know that? You want to know, who am I really doing business with? Because it's clearly not you. There's someone behind you. You're his proxy, and that's okay. I just want to know who's behind the person that I'm talking to so I know what I'm getting myself into. Am I about to be dealing with the cartel here, the mob? What is going on? Investing that kind of money comes with strings or this kind of loyalty to where it is. The worker who's going out and using this money would be identified with the person giving them. The ancient Near Eastern system is a patron-client system. This is kind of like the medieval feudal system where you have a wealthy person who owns a lot and they employ a lot of people under them, and those people are expected to serve and give loyalty up the system, and down the system you're supposed to take care of, provide for, and protect those beneath you. And so that's exactly what would have been happening here. He's a wealthy person. These people are in his household. And so there's this loyalty. They're not doing business on their own. They're doing business in his name. The investments were not handed out equally when you look at it. They were given out each according to his ability. When we think about the economics of God's kingdom, it often has more to do with the intent of our heart rather than the quantity or the output or the production. For instance, Jesus saw the widow giving 2 mites, 2 pennies in the temple. And he calls her out, he says, this woman has given more than everyone else. I think there were a couple reasons why he called her out for that. One was he saw her heart. He saw that this was a pure heart. He saw a humble heart in how she gave. But I think the other side of this was the fact that she gave from her lack. She gave all that she had, even though what she had was not much. Whereas the other people might have been giving very large sums, but they were giving out of their abundance. And so he saw that it was her heart and her sacrifice, not the dollar amount that she was given. So with this money doled out, the master leaves, and then their various business plans begin to unfold. Verse 16, he says, he who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them. He made 5 talents more. So he also who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received that 1 talent went and dug in the ground, and he hid his master's money. The idea seemed to be that they would do business with the money that he gave them. It's not explicitly spelled out, but based on the 2 servants and who they were and who they understood the master to be, immediately they set out to do some work with the money. And they're both able, it tells us right off the bat, he's not leaving some big reveal scene at the end. Right off the bat, we know they made it big. The one that we don't know is what happens with the guy who buries his talent in the ground. The first two servants, they have different amounts of money, but with their approach, with this implied contract, it's the same. Their approach was get to work and get to work immediately. The master's gone. He's entrusted us with lots of money. Let's get busy. How does the community feel about their master? We don't know. Why did he have to go away? And when will he return? You can imagine people asking these questions of them. How do the people in town feel about dealing with his proxies instead of him? We don't know these answers. We're just left to wonder. But we do know what the third man did. And that's maybe where we get a sense that between him and perhaps the sentiment in the town, there's something going on. Because he takes $1.2 million, digs a hole in his backyard, puts the money in, and then covers it up and pretends like it's not there. He buries the money in the ground. There's no risk, right? There's no risk of going out there and doing some kind of venture and then it failing and you losing the money and having to report that. That would be kind of embarrassing. Hey, I lost all your money. Thanks for entrusting me. He doesn't have to worry about that, but there's also no return, right? It's the safest bet, or is it? There's no bad blood with the community. If they don't like the master, there's not him putting his neck out there on behalf of some guy who's not even here. He's just able to put it in his backyard, quietly pretend like nothing's going on, and go about his day just like he would have. Maybe he was hedging his bets. Perhaps the master won't return. I don't need to spend all of this time and energy employing this money if the master's not even going to return. This could just be early retirement for me. Maybe he had better things to do with his time. We don't know. All we know is he dug a hole and he buried it, whatever his motivation was. Now comes everyone's favorite time, the annual review. Verse 19 says, now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also who had 2 talents came forward saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. These guys have to cart in the money. I said it was a measure of weight. 1 talent is equivalent to about 50 to 80 pounds. We don't know exactly, but it's somewhere in the range of 50 to 80 pounds. So he's got 10 talents at 50 to 80 pounds. I mean, he's got a donkey cart pulling this treasure trove that he's now delivering to his master. But verse 19 opens up with this phrase, after a long time. In the previous chapter, Jesus has been teaching them, hey, here's the plan of when I'm coming back. These are what the signs are going to look like. But it might take a little bit longer than you were imagining. And every story he's been telling since then kind of implies there's this sort of waiting period where his servants are put to the test. And what happens in that testing time reveals what's actually going on in their heart. After a long time, it says, he might be delayed in his return. But soon there's this grand return in the story. And the return signals both good and it signals bad. For servant number 1, he steps up and he says, look, you delivered to me. Listen to the language of that. There's recognition of where did the resource come from? This isn't he walks in and he lays out the spreadsheet on the table and he starts bragging about, look at the return on investment that I have done. Look at me. He says, look, you, first word, you delivered to me. And then the next phrase, here I have made. You gave, I have made. There's this call and answer. There's this echo. There's this reflection that's supposed to be. It's a sun and it's a moon. There's immediate recognition that the resource or the blessing or the endowment, if you will, the investment is coming from the master and is expected to return to the master. He doubled the money and he shows him this. His master says to him, verse 21, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. Well done, good and faithful servant. What is praised? good job on doubling the money. Nope, that's not what he said. Good job on the percentage of return. Nope, not what he said. Well done, it's his character. The fact that the money did what the money did proved something in his heart. He was a good and faithful servant. The reward is the praise, but the reward is also being set over more responsibility. Hey, you manage this money well, I'm gonna give you more to manage. It's more and greater responsibility that he's entrusted with. And then finally, it's the joy of his master. Enter into the joy of your master. Servant number 2 steps up. We see the same response. You delivered to me the money. I have returned to you double. It's the same language. And his master says the same thing. Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. Now, what's interesting here is in both of these references, there's one tiny little phrase that he says, literally, it's little. From the perspective of the master, they were both faithful over a little. I don't know how much this guy had, that this sort of money was just a little. That's a lot of money. I mean, think about the perspective of the two guys. Like one guy has 6 million, the other has 2.5 million. There's a lot of daylight between those two numbers. From my perspective, I go, he entrusted one guy with a lot and then one guy with a lot more. But from the perspective of the master, it's both just a little. See, our human understanding, we elevate these things. We make those the key things. But from the master's standpoint, look, I gave you all a little bit. You all had a little bit. What did your heart prove to do with that little bit that I gave you? And for the first two servants, they doubled it. They were faithful, and they were praised for this. Servant number 3's response goes straight to blaming the master. This is the other side of the review, the punishment. Verse 24 says, he also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master answered him, you wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gathered where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers. And at my coming, I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into outer darkness, in that place where there be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Look at the language that this servant uses. The other two servants say, you entrusted to me, you gave to me. It starts with a reflection of you. This servant, though, it's the opposite. Master, I knew. It starts with I. I knew you to be a hard man. This word hard carries this idea of being strict or harsh, cruel, merciless. I knew you to be without mercy, and so I put it in the ground so nothing would happen. He's saying, look, you take what isn't yours. You're gathering in places that you haven't sown. That's what kind of person you are. And so I just wanted to take the safe bet. I put the ground in the money. He gives words that are similar to Adam and Eve's answer. He's afraid. Verse 26, I was afraid and I went and hid your talent in the ground. When God comes back to Adam and Eve and he says, where are you? He says, we're hiding. Where are you hiding? Well, I'm afraid. Who told you you were naked? I heard your voice. I was afraid and I hid. That's what Adam said. I heard your voice and I hid. That's what he's saying. I was afraid and I hid. It's the same kind of Adam response that we get. It's safe to say that he completely misunderstood his master's nature and he acted accordingly. However, in addition to not actually understanding the master's nature, he also, while he thought he was acting accordingly, didn't get it quite right. Let's take his view of the master for a moment. If the master is in fact this harsh, merciless person, you don't want to tick him off. And that's sort of what he's alluding at. If you knew I was a hard person, why didn't you at least do the bare minimum? Why didn't you at least give it to a banker instead of put it in the ground so I could have my money back with a little bit of interest? If you knew me to be harsh, if you knew me to take what's not mine, why didn't you try a little bit harder? I hear from atheists all the time, well, I can't believe in a God who is, and it'll list these things, genocidal, murderous, goes down this list. And I go, well, listen, either God exists or God does not exist. If the God who does in fact exist, exists, and if he is how you describe him, man, I sure wouldn't want to tick him off. Right? Like you're pretending because you don't like him that somehow that impacts his existence. Well, he either exists or he doesn't. But if that being that you describe exists, that sounds like a terrifying thing, and you should really change what's going on in your life. If you think that that being might exist and be that kind of way, you should change. And that's what the master is saying. Look, if you thought I was this sort of way, and you wanted to act accordingly, you should have acted differently. The faithful servants recognize the master as the source, and they're proud to do business in his name. You go in any country that has a king or a queen, and guess what you see? Everywhere you go, you see their picture on the wall. You go to the kingdom of Jordan that has King Hussein, and you will see his picture with, sometimes it's him dressed in royalty, sometimes it's him with his family and their family pet. It looks like a Christmas card kind of thing. Sometimes it's them walking at the beach. It's all these different faces of the king you get, but you get a face of the king everywhere you go. Go into any dictatorship around the world, you're gonna see pictures of the dictator everywhere you go. They would have known where the money was. The two good, faithful servants, they're proud to be aligned with the person who entrusted them so much. Only the wicked servant blames the master. And so this action against him unfolds. Step number one, he takes the talent and he gives it to the one with 10. And his reasoning, he says, for everyone who has, more will be given. But the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And then finally, there's these words. In each of these stories, he's told at the end there's something that we would associate with punishment in hell. Cast this worthless servant into outer darkness in the place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Again, Jesus is giving this address. The other addresses he's given, the other sermons, Sermon on the Mount, it's to the masses. This final one, it's his disciples who have asked. And so he's warning a group of people who are following him every day, watch out, check yourself. Don't just assume because you're standing here in my presence that you actually believe. What do your actions prove is happening in your heart? And that is how Jesus is using this. But you know, the worst part of the punishment, I think, is that this servant has a skewed view of his master, and the master doesn't correct it. Did you notice that? At no point did he say, look, you thought I was this, so you should have acted differently. Hey, by the way, I'm not that. I'm gracious, I'm loving, I'm generous. He never says that. I think the other two servants understood their master to be that way, but the wicked and faithless servant did not. He understood his master to be harsh, stingy, greedy, a usurper of kinds, and that master left him with that idea. He goes carried off at the end of this story, always thinking, man, that guy, he's so harsh. I want you to think of a time in your life when you were angry with God. Maybe you've been through a time of trauma, maybe grief, maybe pain. What words do you use to describe God during those times? I've been there. I thought of God as not very loving, not very just. God, it's not fair. Why is this happening to me? Why now? Where are you? Think of him as absentee. All of these words come rushing in times like this. Words like unfair, unjust, cruel, malevolent, absent, cavalier, capricious. You know what was the hardest day of the week when I was feeling those things? Sunday. You come in and people are like, rah, rah, Jesus. You're like, man, who are these people? Do they know? Like, are we talking about the same guy? That's how these servants were. I mean, the first two servants, they're like, oh, awesome, this guy's great. Gave us tons of investment. We don't deserve this. Puts us over more. Third guy goes, who is this guy? And who are those guys who are following him? Like, we're following two different people. Sunday was the hardest day. You know, it was one of the hardest things to do give and serve. It's true. It's the hardest thing. Because you feel burnt, whether it's you see ultimately where it's from of God, or whether you think it's those around you or an institution, you feel burnt, and so you pull back. God, I'm not going to share my resources. I'm not going to give my resources. I have to protect. I have to circle the wagons and keep myself safe from you, from them, from whatever. Right? These are hard things. But let me tell you, part of the healing process is working through those feelings so that our hands open back up and our mouths open back up and our hearts open back up. Our mind becomes transformed of understanding that somehow the pain I went through fits in line with the character of God, who is in fact loving. And that is difficult to understand. It is difficult to reason with. It's difficult to make all of those pieces add together. It looks like some kind of unsolvable equation, and at some point we either make the decision to go, I'm going to be at peace, and I'm going to trust, and I'm going to let God tell me who he is, or I'm going to let all of those words, all of that impression I have of God, that is going to be what writes how I see God. You've probably met both people in your life, and I think that's okay. If you meet people who are in phase one of they only see God as harsh, it's okay, love them. The story's not done. We've probably all been there. Maybe you're there today, and that's okay. It takes some time to work through this, but one of the most terrifying things would be if God leaves you there, because that's not actually his character. And we have pages and pages and pages of his story which tell us what his character is like. It tells us of his love, of his steadfast love. We have to go through that process of healing. Otherwise, we wind up like this servant where our only view of him, perhaps maybe he leaves us with that view. And that would be a terrifying thing, to not actually know who he is. What does all of this mean for us? Number one, all that we have is entrusted by God. It's not just a loan. It is a loan, but it's an investment. It's an investment for which we will be held accountable one day. What has God given us? What has he entrusted us with? One day we stand before him and we say one of two things, right? Either, hey, you entrusted me with this. Here, look what I've returned to you. Or we say this other thing, you take what's yours. I don't want this relationship, which is what the second servant said. It might be easy, it may be tempting to look around and say, well, who is burying their talent in the ground? But that's not exactly the point. This isn't about who your family is or your neighbor or your coworker or the person next to you in the pew. It's about you, it's about me, it's about each of us individually in our relationship with God. What is my accountability to God over what he's given me? I can look at someone else and go, man, he gave that person so much more than me. That's okay. God thought they could handle it, didn't think I could handle it. That's okay. Whether that's physical like abilities and talents or that kind of thing, or actual money talents or resources or time or whatever. God gives each to us according to our ability and then holds us accountable in the same kind of way. Someone having more than me is not an excuse to say, well, if someone has so much more than me, it doesn't even matter what I'm doing. No, it does matter. Like, that's the point of the story, is each of them are judged according to their ability. They're gifted according to their ability and then held accountable according to the same. Having more or less is not an excuse. Whatever God has entrusted, whether a lot or little, he's expecting to see, what will you do? It's less about the function of what that money or that time or that talent can do, and it's more about what does that say about your heart and where your heart is with God. If I were to go back to my opening about cabals and conspiracies, what if I were to tell you that the wealth of 2.5 billion people is supplied by a single source, a single investor? He supplied the largest nonprofit in the world, has more branches in more countries than any other entity. It's among more languages, more ethnicities. But even more, it has an agenda for the world. He has an agenda for the world. He wants to bring all people under his rule. And this means something for politics. At some point, every political system will have to bow the knee to this one single investor. Every nation is expected to pay homage. If you didn't already know what I was talking about, that would actually sound terrifying, I'm sure. Who is he? Well, he's not here right now. He's coming back soon. When we say this to the world, we might feel crazy. We might sound crazy to them. That's okay. It's The truth is the truth. But he has blessed us to be a blessing to all nations. He's granted us rule, to rule with him and bring all things under his feet. He's commissioned us to be his hands and his feet. The plan is sound, but we have to look at ourselves and go, well, which servant am I? Am I the servant who is entrusted with something and goes, okay, I will work with what you have given me until you return, and my hope, my prayer is that this return I'm able to put something, to cart it in. That'd be my hope. I want to cart it in and lay it in front of you and go, look at what you gave me. Look at what it did. Number 2, don't bury your asset. It's not a use it or lose it. We also often hear that, oh, God's going to give you something and it's use it or lose it. It's not use it or lose it. I would argue it's use it or die. We don't see things in that serious of a way, but I think that's actually it. Like what God has given to us and how we use it, it's proving what it's proving what's happened in our heart. So this is, again, not works-based salvation. If only the wicked, lazy servant had done more. Man, if he had put it in the bank, at least then he would have heard, okay, good and faithful servant, okayest servant ever, right? It's not, could he have worked harder and earned his salvation? It's that by looking at the work that he did, the master sees what is in his heart, sees that he completely doesn't know the master. So it's not use it or lose it. And our goal as a church is how to help you become more effective. I hope you're effective. But you being effective has more to do with what is in your heart than what I can teach you or what we can do together. Do you know the master? If you know the master, you're going to use it. And the fact that you are using it, whether it accomplishes a lot or a little, whether he's given you a lot or a little, the fact that you're using it for him, the fact that you're identifying with him and using it, shows what is in your heart. But for those of us who are saying, you know what? It's okay if I just coast in life. God's given me lots of stuff. I can just use it for my own selfishness. I can use it for my own pleasure. It's mine. Okay, that is a life choice as well. But to those people, I think the warning here is this is a moment to peer inward. It's a moment to go, what do those actions say about what I truly, actually believe in my heart? What does it say about who I truly know in my heart? Again, not work salvation, it's just how we are working, and the fruit of our work shows what is happening here. It's a reflection. Every religion around the world has some kind of system of giving. And usually their understanding is the practitioner, the devotee, we could call them, they come to the temple, they come to the place of worship with their resource. And they want the gods or the goddesses to do something for them. And so what do? I'm gonna buy a candle from the temple priest, I'm gonna put it in front of this statue and I'm gonna light it. I'm gonna buy some fruit and I'm gonna put it in front of this statue and I'm gonna leave it there as an offering, right? I'm bringing my resource and now I'm giving something for something. It's a relationship, it's a mechanism here. Our system is different though. We're not trying to manipulate God to do something for us. It's quite the opposite. What I have is not actually mine. It's right. It's not mine. It's all God's. And so I'm not bringing him my resources. I'm not bringing him my mental power, my ingenuity, my whatever it is. He gave all of that to me to start with. Our system is he blesses us to bless the world in his name. He has invested and given us everything so that it goes out into the world. A lot of times Christians, we argue about, tithing and the 10%. Is it 10%? Should we tithe in today's world? Does the New Testament talk about tithing? God doesn't want our measly 10%. Right? What story have we read in the gospel so far where it seems like 10% is enough for Jesus? None of them. He says, go sell all that you have, right? So if we want to get to what the New Testament teaches about stuff, you might actually prefer the Old Testament system of tithing more, right? If your heart is going, how do I, let's argue about the 10%, you're arguing about the wrong number if we're talking New Testament times. He wants it all because it's all his. And so he's given it all to us freely so that we will bless other people, so that we will be productive in his kingdom. Number 3, This story says something about the end times. Jesus is letting us know that he's going away. He's letting them know that I'm about to be leaving you. He keeps saying this throughout Matthew. And then he says, look, I'm coming back. I will be returning again. And I'm expecting you to be busy in the interim. A lot of people say, well, if the master is returning to take us away, if we're going to be pulled out of the world, what does this matter anyway? Why be productive? Why be active anyway if God's just going to come back, if the world's going to be destroyed and remade? It doesn't matter what we do. Well, actually, this story teaches the exact opposite. It very much matters what we are doing. In fact, it's because he's coming back that it matters what we're doing. He's given us all of this, and he wants to see, what did you do with what I gave you? It's not a question of, will that last forever or not? It's, I'm coming back. I want to see, what did you do? And so even though Jesus stays away a while, we're expected to be working and to be active while he's gone. If we compare this story and the previous one, the parable of the wedding and the wise and foolish virgins, if we kind of take them together, I came across a really great quote this week from a guy named Henry Alford. He says, the foolish virgins failed from thinking that their part was too easy, and the wicked servant fails from thinking his part is too hard. The foolish virgins failed because they thought their part was too easy, right? They thought, we don't need to show up prepared. We don't need to be ready for a long time of waiting and then be ready for him when he returns. He'll come back. He'll be back soon. It'll be easy. And this guy thought, well, look at how much he gave those guys. Look at how much the community may or may not like him. He might not even come back. I guess it doesn't even matter. I'm just going to bury it in the ground. This seems too hard. The early church struggled with the idea that Jesus was coming back because every time the text talks about it, it's he's coming back soon. And we've been saying this for 2,000 years now. He's coming back soon, and he is. The church in Thessalonica, they were so convinced he was coming back soon that quite a few of them are not working. They're living off of, and they're begging from others who are working. We all hear that verse, whoever doesn't work, neither shall he eat. Well, that's the context it was given in. It was given in over this idea of Jesus is taking too long to come back. And so we better, we better do something about it, right? We thought he was coming back soon, so now we went out and sat on a hillside to wait for him to return, but also it's dinner time and we're hungry and no one's feeding us, so we better go out and start begging. And they didn't know what to do, and that's where Paul was saying, look, yes, he's coming back. It'll be in the twinkling of an eye. In the meantime, go plant your gardens and get back to work. If you're not going to work, you're just going to starve. And that's the context that came in. So he is coming back. He's coming back soon. But in the interim, there's waiting and there's work. Let me close this in prayer. Lord, we thank you for your word. As we think about all that you have given us, God, we thank you for your resources you give us. Our money, our health, our time, our talent, our energy, the jobs that we have, the network of relationships, our friends, where we live, when we live. All of these things are from you. We don't have control over much of any of it. God, as we look at our own lives, as we think about what are we doing with what you have given us, your word is a mirror. As we peer into that mirror, we see what is going on in our heart. For so many of us, Lord, we want to be active in your work. We want to take what you have given us, and at some point in the future, we want to say, look, you gave this to us. Here is what we did with it. Here is for you. But some of us, we're coasting through life. We're just keeping everything bottled up to ourselves. We're burying it in the ground. And we could say, well, the reason is a lack of faith. The reason is stinginess. The reason is. But Lord, maybe the reason is we don't know you. Maybe the real reason is we don't know who you are and what your nature is. We think of you as a harsh person. So God, I pray that you would transform us. Speak to those people. Show them your true nature, Lord. Call them to yourself. Lord, we ask all this in your name.